Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. This is a space where we seek to create and cultivate healthy conversations between those things we geek out on and the philosophical and theological questions that often arise out of our fandoms. Like, what does it mean to be human? What makes a hero? What makes a villain? How do the stories and narratives we geek out on shape how we live in the world? We are your priest to the geeks. We aren't all ordained, but we see ourselves as mediators at the intersection of geek culture and going deeper in our faith. We don't always have to agree, but we do respect each other, and we see everyone as a beloved child of God. Everyone geeks out on something, so come geek out with us and enjoy the show.
You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast.
What can the immense cosmology of the Dresden Files teach us? We're going to be asking that question and a lot more in today's episode of Systematic Geekology. We are the priests to the geeks. Today, I am joined by, of course, the oldest wizard in the land, the one who actually taught every other wizard out there, TJ Blackwell. How's it going, TJ?
It's going great. Surprising couple of recent developments with the memory here. Kind of worrying. Okay. Other than that, pretty good.
Well, if we've lived as long as you have, it just takes a while to cycle through the memories.
Yeah, once I'm hitting these like later 2000s, it's getting really tough.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Christian Ashley, joined with TJ Blackwell today. TJ, what have you been geeking out on recently?
Recently, Counter-Strike.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got back into that?
Yeah. Well, I was never into Counter-Strike. I never played it until I played it a tiny bit for like 2 or 3 hours a few months ago.
Okay.
But if you just load into a lobby, there's a good chance everyone in that lobby will have more hours than me. All of mine are from like the past 2 weeks. Every lobby I'm in, everyone's got 500, 600, 3,000, 4,000 hours in the game.
Goodness gracious.
It's exhausting. It's really hard to learn. But
especially
it's so
with
fun.
A bunch of pros. Good.
Yeah. Oh, it's ridiculous. I'll just die and so quickly and it's so unexpectedly, and I'll check their profile. And it's like, 3.8 hours on record, or 3.8 thousand hours on record. I was like, having fun.
Yeah.
I just hit 60.
No wonder I lost. Let's see. Me, I watched the first 2 episodes of Agatha All Along. I'm not happy, but I'm not upset. It's just kind of a thing that exists that I don't think should have been made, but here we are. So there's that. Yeah. Hopefully someone out there is far more positive than I.
Yep.
So this episode is going to be part of our fandoms and religions and everything that we've been doing across the year. If you want to check out the other episodes on there, there'll be a link below in the description for you to check out. But today we are covering religion through the lens of the Dresden Files. Now, TJ, would you like to explain to the good people what the Dresden Files is about and what it is?
Yeah. So the Dresden Files, we're following. It's basically at its bare form is a thriller, kind of mystery series.
Urban fantasy.
Urban fantasy. It's like the urban fantasy series. But we're following Harry Dresden, Henry, hilarious. Somebody called me Henry the other day, and it was extremely confusing. But we're following Harry Dresden, Chicago's first and only wizard private investigator.
You can find him in the Yellow Pages.
Yeah. And then, oh boy, do things develop.
Yeah, it's a huge part of it. Yeah, we start off real small with an investigation of someone using a magic illicitly, and then suddenly there's wars between different fairy realms and people who are using coins that host fallen angels inside of them, and now we're getting closer to the end of the world. It's a lot of fun. It's a really great series. I didn't add this to the outline, but like, when did you get into it, TJ?
So this was like ninth grade, my freshman year, so like 2014-ish. I was on, library trawl looking for new things to read. And I picked up the Dresden Files, and I think the one I picked up was like Death Masks or something. And I was like, well, this doesn't look like the first book in the series, so let me find it and start reading it. So I read all of those, the up to date, which was the last one was was after Deadbeat,
Proven Guilty, White Knight,
Cold Days.
Cold Days.
Cold Days had just come out, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So right up to that, and then by the time Skin Game came out, I just kind of had forgotten I was really into the series.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair with the long intervals of, books not being written due to various factors, including, Butcher's health and a really bad divorce and needing a little time to himself. He kind of stayed away from writing for a little bit. And I think we're at a 4-year gap in between the last book that released, which would be, I just said it earlier today when I was talking to you, Battleground.
Yeah.
So we're waiting on that. And he's even added the new book because he realized there's more he'd have to write. So there's another book he had to add to the list of books he was already writing. So there's that.
Yeah. And this is the longest break he's taken. This is his longest hiatus.
Yes.
Yeah, we're at like a Togashi stage with the Dresden Files.
Oh, who, by the way, has been tweeting chapters he's about to send out. So
yeah, pretty
looking
exciting.
forward to that. I'm ready to get off that stupid boat, to be perfectly honest with you.
Me
but
too.
In regards to Dresden, I started reading it in college. I want to say like 2010, 2011, somewhere around there, and fell in love with the series. It was so fun. I love the snarkiness of our main character. I love the world building that Butcher does here. Like the dialogues, the action scenes. He's really great at all of that. So yeah, it was an easy sell for me, when someone finally said, "Hey, why don't you check this out?" And I did.
Yeah. It's such a cool setting too. Like this is what, young kids, like this is what we want to see when we look out in the world.
Oh yeah, a land of fantasy and magic and monsters and good versus evil, but also a little bit of gray thrown in there too. So do you have a favorite book in the series of what you've read?
If I can remember right, I want to say Death Mask did end up being my favorite.
Okay.
And I was like binge reading these books when I did read them. So they do kind of blur together for me a lot. Because it wasn't even, I would rent them out 4 at a time. Read them all in like a week and then get the next 4. So it didn't take me long to catch up. But it's not great for my aforementioned memory problems.
Well, I'm the same in that regard myself. I had to do a lot of looking up on the different wikis to make sure I had my information right before we started doing this one. So if there are slip-ups along the way, we'll do our best to correct ourselves.
Yep.
But for me, mine is actually the book right after when you started. So not to try and hype you up to continue, but Skin Game is definitely my favorite. It brings back, Nicodemus and the Denarians on a quest to steal from the underworld. Yeah, and it is pretty amazing.
That's really annoying.
I think that's a spoiler maybe, but I mean, you were going to read it eventually anyways.
Yeah. Man, that's annoying.
Yeah, it's when you get a chance, TJ, you got to get into that one. I highly recommend it.
Honestly, at this point, I need to reread the entire series.
I mean, don't we all?
I'm gonna.
Oh, okay.
I think as soon as we're done,
while you
start, actually.
I'm surprised you haven't brought it out right now to read in the middle of recording like you do with the movies we do.
Yeah. Hold on. Give me just a second.
My name is
Stormfront.
My name is Harry Blackstone Copperfield, or Dresden, conjure it at your own risk, or something like that. TJ reads. It just keeps going.
Oh, you're right. No, I should pull up the TV show. That's what I should be doing right now.
Yeah, TJ does bring it up. There was a TV show that lasted for one season. I think was it Sci-Fi or something like that?
Yeah.
It is okay.
I didn't actually watch it. It's not the best
adaptation, but it is okay. So while you're about to reread through the series, live on the air, can you recall who your favorite character is?
I liked Shiro a lot.
Ooh.
Spoiler warning, dead.
Does not last long.
Yeah. Shiro was awesome to me. It was like, okay, Kusanagi, that's sick.
Mm-hmm.
I love like the blend of, Europe, like Western myth and Eastern myth.
Yes.
That Shiro brings with, Kusanagi. It's awesome. Super cool. The idea, we're not talking about the swords yet, but.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. Yeah. The way he weaves mythology into this series is extremely well done. We'll get to the swords in a bit, but also right now, because my favorite character is also a Knight of the Cross, and that is Michael Carpenter. I love this man. He's like the moral person Harry needs in his life, who's not like, in your face about it or too preachy for his own good, but like he's very patient with him. He believes in him when no one else does. Like even when he knows Harry took one of the coins and has been resisting it the entire time, he never once thought that he fell. He was just patiently waiting for Harry to talk to him and loving him. And then like the fight scenes he has, the way we see him like grow a little older in the series, which is very rare for a Knight of the Cross. Yeah, this is my man. He's one of my favorite characters in all of fiction, honestly.
Yeah, man. Jim Butcher writes fantastic characters. I mean, like I'd probably put him up there with some of our great character writers.
Mm-hmm.
Not number one.
I find
because
what I find extremely interesting about him is that he himself is agnostic, and yet the care and attention he gives to the different religions that he focuses on in the series, especially Christianity, obviously, since it's an American story for the most part, is very well handled. There's no like a religion is evil, and anyone who thinks if anything religious is evil. But it's all like, hey, like he has issues with the church, obviously, and Harry is one of the vehicles he uses for that. But he also has a reverence for it when it's actually doing its job and what it actually means to be a member that I really appreciate.
Yeah, I feel like the perspective we get from him, we can only get from a person who's agnostic.
Yeah,
it's not muddled by, his opinions and his beliefs. It's just pure Catholic research.
Yes, Catholicism being a primary denomination he focuses on in this series. It's just one of those things. It's kind of, I wish there were more Christian authors out there who actually spent the time to show a little nuance in their stories, instead of like, here's my perfect Christian character who's always right because he's Christian. Yeah. And then we get another God's Not Dead, and then sequels to that movie, and can't stand it.
It doesn't help when they're bad.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I can forgive many things. A bad movie's not one of them, or a bad book. Yeah. So since we kind of already touched on it a little bit, how does religion, come into play in this series, TJ? Not everything. We don't have to cover everything, but what you can recall.
So later on, after we get past the wizard detective baseline, we find out that the rest of this story is pretty much driven by the Knights of the Cross and the Black and Denarius, who are essentially what we've got is angels versus demons, but mostly in human wizard form. He doesn't show the actual angels and demons a lot. He stays away from that, which I think is good practice. If, in this world, God exists and can do things, so over relying on that would make it probably pretty boring when bad things happened. Yeah. So, he's, God in the Dresden Files is kind of like a laissez-faire kind of guy, which I respect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's not out of line with belief. But we've basically got the fallen angels trying to do bad things and Swords of the Cross trying to stop them.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you bring that up about Harry, because to hear him talk about faith, and especially God, is very interesting, because it's definitely one of those, because you've met people like this before who are, yeah, I think it's great, but you don't want me to be part of your group. I'll just screw it up. As if everyone inside there was perfect. And I think that's a great disservice Christianity has kind of done in general. So we're full of perfect people, so therefore only the best of the best gets to join us, versus, hey, no, we're a bunch of screw-ups who are working on bettering ourselves, working with a perfect God who is getting us on our way to perfection.
Yeah.
But there's also a surprising amount of humbleness in something like that, too, for Harry. And thinking, yeah, I'm not good enough. And he knows he's not good enough, but that's kind of the point, is that we're not.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah. And along the way, too, we see figures of other religions. I already said about Skin Game. So, yeah, Hades does show up in the 15th book. I think Skin Game's the 15th book. Then later on, we get Ethniu of the Fomorians, of the more Irish Celtic side of mythologies. We have Odin appearing. We have references to Greek mythology, Norse mythology, a little bit of Hindu as well. Very little of that, but it's showing up. Might come along the way. Yeah, it's a hodgepodge of everything, and that's what I really like, is that it's convoluted in a fun way, and not in a, okay, I have to have my chart here to cross-reference these 50 pages where something might be mentioned kind of way of being convoluted.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love it when an author is doing like modern fantasy kind of thing and they use like Gaelic deities. Super cool.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of American Gods actually was Cernunnos.
Cernunnos?
But
yeah,
super awesome.
That's talking about another great book. We need to cover that later on too at some point.
We do.
Yeah. Okay. But to stay on track here, we mentioned them earlier. There's a group in a series known as the Knights of the Cross. They use what are known as the Swords of the Cross. And literally what happens is that those swords are imbued with part of the cross that Jesus sacrificed himself on for the sake of those who would repent.
Yeah.
So they have been welded, forged into that shape of a sword with that implanted inside of it, which then imbues it. It's heavily implied with an angel inside of it.
Yeah. So they took the nails that they stuck Jesus to the cross with and forged them into swords. And somehow two of them ended up being English and one of them ended up being Japanese swords. You know,
the Randall would be Frankish German.
Okay, is it? Okay.
Yeah, okay. Holy Roman Empire.
French. All right. I don't remember, because I always see Durandal and Excalibur together, and I was like, I just assumed it was English.
Yeah. Charlemagne was originally Frankish before he became the Holy Roman Emperor.
All right.
So, yeah. Other than what we've said before, like, how do they factor into the story?
The swords? Or?
Yes.
So, basically, the Swords of the Cross, they aren't our protagonist. They are a protagonistic force, but, you know, we have Harry. Right? So the Swords of the Cross are kind of, I want to say, that's weird. I'm trying to think of the best way to put this, but they're kind of like Harry's best allies in this fight.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Designation, Knights of the Cross being the people, Swords of the Cross being what they use.
Yeah.
I mess that up all the time, too.
So, the Knights, they each, you know, there's been 4 that we know of, or 4 that are like active in the books that we read, and then the ones in
technically,
the past.
Yes. There's been all other people who've wielded them, but they were like temporary knights, which is not unheard of. That's actually something they talk about in the series, that someone might pick it up for a day and no longer wield it again.
Yeah. So, anyway, Harry teams up with the Knights of the Cross sometimes to help them and for them to help him. Got lost.
So again, our introduction to Michael too is him and Harry working together to stop this ghost specter thing that's murdering infants that have just been born in the hospital. And they get arrested because there's this guy in armor with a sword right next to a bunch of kids. The guy dressed up like a wizard. But they're doing something incredibly useful and important in saving lives.
Yeah. I do feel like they could have just played that off as a street performance too. Like, come on.
Yeah, but their main goal is to make sure, as we get to another group later on, the actual name is, the Order of the Blackened Denarius, who are 30 people over time who have taken one of the 30 coins used by Judas Iscariot after he was paid for the death of Jesus. They have all been imbued with a fallen angel who can take over that person and kind of a possession kind of way, but there's also kind of a dual sense in that both still have a sense of awareness. So the Knights of the Cross actively fight against them to try and get rid of the coins and try and make sure that they don't take over the world. But there's also not our main characters, as we pointed out earlier. Harry just gets involved with them. I think it's like Butcher's Plan is like every 5 books, one of them, Nicodemus at least will show up as the leader of them.
Yeah.
Now let's go ahead and start off with, with knights we have. You mentioned earlier, Shiro. So what about, other than what you said earlier, how does Shiro factor into the story?
Oh my goodness. Let me try and rack my brain for stuff other than Shiro's awesome.
Yeah. I got you if you don't got it.
You go ahead. I'll chime in.
Okay. So way back in the day, Shiro was attending goodness gracious, why can I not think of the word, a concert for Elvis Presley. He was a huge Elvis fan, and he found someone who had asked him if he wanted to meet the king. Him thinking he was going to lead that to Elvis, went with this man only to find out that he was actually a Baptist who was trying to get him to meet King Jesus. But as a result, Shiro actually came to faith, was baptized, and later on was given the sword of faith, which is known as Fidelicius. And if I screw up any of these pronunciations, sorry, I've only ever seen them written down. And as we find later, this is actually Kusanagi, one of the ceremonial and traditional mythological weapons of Japan. How did the nail of the cross get in there? Don't worry about it. We'll get there later on, I think. But ever since then, he's been serving as the Knight of the Cross from this misunderstanding. And now when Harry meets him in, I think, Death Masks, he's become like one of the greatest heroes of all time.
Yeah. Pretty awesome.
And it's through him and a couple of the other knights that we find out the knight's real mission isn't only to stop the knights, the Black and Denarius, the Denarians as they're called, but it's to try and convince them to convert and give up the coin so that they themselves aren't sentenced to hell. Because that's part of their mission, is to love their enemies. Which I find immensely fascinating.
Yeah. It really, it makes it different. Like, it's very different from a normal, fantasy setting. Like, hey, we're going to go kill those guys. They're doing bad things. The goal here is not to kill the Denarians. We want to, if they do die, that's awful. But
yes, it's not like they don't attempt to if there's no other way to reason with them.
Yeah, the goal is to save them.
Mm-hmm.
They're just really aggressive missionaries.
And one of their members, we'll find out later on, is actually someone they successfully did that to. But before we get to him, let's go on to Michael. What do you got to say about Michael Carpenter?
I was just going to let you talk about Michael Carpenter.
Okay. Yeah.
That seemed...
I will gush about my man. He, from what we're introduced to him, he's that knight in shining armor. That's literally the trope I would use to describe him, is that he is there to save people. He's there to rescue them. He's there to lead them on a proper path. he is the proud husband of a really good wife that he saved from a dragon. He he literally saved his wife from a dragon and married her, and now has, I think, like 7 or 8 kids thereabouts. Very Catholic. Goes to his church, tithes, practices what he preaches, but not in like a hoity-toity or haughty way, but in like a genuineness. There is something about Jesus that has changed him to where he is like this. And across the series, we see him get a little more vulnerable. And from what TJ has read, he is one of the few blessed knights who's actually able to retire because he suffers an injury so great, he's not able to fight anymore. But it's a small mercy because now he can be an even better father to his kids, because someone else is going to take the sword of love, which is Amarachius, which is also, by the way, Excalibur, so that they can be a knight in his stead.
Yeah.
And not to hype you up even more about Skin Game, but there's a reason I like Michael, and it's not just everything that he does before. He shows up in a mighty way in book 15.
I'm sure. Man. Good grief. I'm just going to read for the rest of the night, I think.
I'm glad we did this episode then.
Yeah.
If you'd like to support our show on Captivate, feel free to go to captivate.fm and find our show, subscribe. You'll get access to any future online D&D campaigns over there. You'll get an extra bonus question for 4 to 8 times a month. You'll get extra content like that through there. You also get a one-time donation you could make to help support the show right on Captivate. So you don't get anything for the one-time donation, but if you would like to just support the show once, do a quick donation, you can do that through captivate.fm. Our overhead includes editing software, marketing, equipment, recording software, and a whole lot of other stuff. And we really appreciate everybody who can help keep the lights on.
So we mentioned earlier that one of the current knights was actually someone who had been saved, at least from being a member of the Denarians. And that, of course, is my guy, Sanya.
Yeah.
TJ, you want to take Sanya away?
Yeah. Sanya's awesome. Sanya is a Black Russian dude, which, comes with its own troubles. I know one, and he hated it. Because you don't have a good time growing up in Russia as a black person.
No, of course not.
But yeah, he gets the coin of Magog and spends a few years being a Denarian, whatever. And he ends up meeting Shiro. I want to say he meets Shiro. Shiro's the one that convinces him to get rid of the coin. And Sanya, they meet Archangel Michael. Small name drop, not a big deal. But Michael gives him Durandal, the Sword of Hope, or they give him, and which is called Esperachius in the Dresden Files, because why not rename them all? It's his book. But Sanya just joins the Swords of the Cross after that and wields Durandal and fights with Durandal and also an AK-47 because he is Russian.
What I find so interesting about him is he doesn't convert.
He's agnostic.
Go ahead.
He's agnostic.
Yes.
Okay, I forgot that. He is agnostic. He fights demons. He's met angels. Throughout this all, sometimes he even says he's an atheist. And when he gets questioned about it, he's just like, that doesn't mean there's a God.
It could be aliens.
Could be, yeah. Just because they're supernatural, that doesn't mean they're like the angels from the Bible.
One of my favorite Sanya moments is, I want to say it's Changes, where a lady cries out, "Oh dear God, help us!" and he shows up out of the blue and says, "Or maybe something else."
Yeah,
that's part of the power of the Knights of the Cross, is that they literally kind of work in mysterious ways. God makes them show up in different places. They have no idea why, and they're just directed to go that way as part of his greater will to, protect people and watch after the earth. And he still denies that even after having met an archangel twice, 2 different archangels.
Yeah, it's so funny. He's just like, I'm not convinced.
But he's still just a good guy, trying to be better than who he was, and resisting his past, where he used to be the very person he's fighting against now.
Yeah, he's like super upbeat, optimistic guy. Like he carries the sword of hope for a reason. That's not God. That doesn't mean the creator God is real.
Nah, it's obviously something else.
Yeah, I'm not buying it. So funny.
Oh yes. Now, for our next sword, because what happens typically is when a Knight of the Cross dies, typically someone else will come along, directed by God, whether they realize it or not, to wield the sword next. But Harry has been made the custodian of the swords, but he hasn't found too many people able to use them for a long time. Now, in changes, Karen Murphy, one of his best cop friends, utilizes the sword momentarily. Then we have, I think, Susan uses one of the other swords on the assault on the temple, or something like that in changes.
Yeah,
but they're not like permanent wielders. Yes, they're temporary. So until the events of Skin Game, which TJ hasn't gotten to, but there's a moment there where the sword is broken. It's been used incorrectly. I believe this is Amarachius or Fidelicius.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one off the top of my head.
It's Excalibur. It's Amarachius.
Okay. Yeah. And in the process, another guy shows up that you wouldn't expect it to be. TJ, you haven't read this part, but can you explain who Waldo Butters is?
Not the same Butters from South Park. They get confused sometimes. I don't remember Butters a whole lot because I need to reread the series.
Yeah. We're first introduced to him in Deadbeat, I think, where he is shown as like Harry's main physician, because as a result of being a wizard, magic and technology don't mix together well. So if Harry went to a hospital a lot of the to be treated, he could ruin the machines that would cost them countless thousands of dollars, or maybe even put someone off of life support or something like that. So he goes to a mortician whose patients are already dead and has, some training in surgery to take care of them, that being Butters. Now, he is like a 30, 40-something guy who's very kind of socially awkward, a little heavy set, really into polka, but has been a very good friend to Harry this whole time. And over time starts getting a little stronger, getting a little better, learns more about the supernatural side of things. Then someone who is Jewish by birth, but not really a believer in anything like that, more of an atheist, picks up the sword. It comes together in the form of a lightsaber, because what he does believe in is his fandoms. So he loves Star Wars, and the sword reforges to fit the way he thinks she should work, and he becomes an official Knight of the Cross. As he notes, a Jewish man became a Knight of the Cross.
Yeah, with a lightsaber.
Now, yes. And there's some stuff with Butters I'm not big on that happened later on, but for the most part, it's a really awesome scene. It really helps as a character to show his growth, that now he's training to fight. He's looking after other people, thinking of more than himself. But this all happens because of the directions of God, who in this series is referred to, especially on the Fae side of things, as the White God. TJ, would you like to go into a little detail about that?
Yeah, I mean, it is like White God specifically. That's what Scandinavians called him when Christianity started spreading up there. But White God is God as we know him, and I know I haven't seen him personally show up in the books.
We still haven't seen.
Okay,
God.
I was like, I know I haven't done it. There's like 4 books I haven't read, but he is real. All of our angels know him except him. He is God. It is still super funny that Sanya doesn't believe, but God, the White God, just kind of makes sure that things go well for the Knights of the Cross. Like, he won't directly intervene and just take all 30 silver coins and just keep them forever, because he can only fix an imbalance. He doesn't want to change the world. I assume that's because we have free will.
Yeah, the white god is a very big stickler for free will. Like, he'll intervene. It's his world. He made it. But, beyond certain events, like, he wants to make sure people have enough time to repent and are able to enforce their will in the world, even if that will is evil, so that they have a time where they can say, well, I did all these bad things, but God gave them a chance to be better than who they are. So he uses more indirect methods, or he uses the Knights of the Cross to just suddenly show up where they're needed without like actively pushing them that way.
Yeah. No, it's cool. It's a take that I personally have always like just kind of believed in. It's like, yeah, why don't all my prayers come true? It's like, well, free will. Would you rather do what you want or, not ever? Because you can't just have free will some of the time.
But one of his main spokesmen, really, in this series is the Archangel Uriel, who acts as pretty much Heaven's spy master. What's your impression of Uriel?
I don't know if there's ever been a bad depiction of Uriel in any media. I feel like he's also like the most common archangel to like be adapted into things for some reason.
Yeah, which is weird because he shows up in the Apocrypha and not in actual scripture. But
no, that's just weird to me. Like I feel like that's got to be true, right? Like, I mean, Gabriel's around, but I've seen Uriel in so many things. But Uriel's great. I love him. He's whimsical for a super powerful being. Fun guy, fun character. They all are. Jim Butcher doesn't like to write boring characters, and
I think it's really funny to me too, because across the series, one of the things that Harry Dresden is known for is like nicknaming people, and them just kind of being forced to accept it. But he calls Uriel Yuri one time and feels like he's about to die, because as he recognizes, he took the part of Uriel's name that means of God away from him, and he's not going to stand for that.
Yeah.
So he settles for Mr. Sunshine instead.
Yeah.
Which then gets picked up by other characters, one of whom we'll mention later on. All right, anything for the Knights of the Cross that we haven't said before we move on to the Denarians?
Super fun group. Hard limited to 3 at a time. Kind of unfortunate, but they only use 3 nails on the cross.
I think it might even be a Trinity reference too. I don't know if he's ever come out and said that, but that would make sense to me.
Yeah.
All right. So as mentioned earlier, the Knights of the Cross are opposed by the Order of the Black and Denarius. They who, after Judas Iscariot had taken his 30 pieces of silver for selling out Jesus to the Pharisees, later hung himself, fell off, and died. Those coins he tried to give back to them. They didn't accept, but instead, in the universe that we have here, they were all possessed by a fallen angel. And if someone ever picks that coin up, they're not automatically possessed, but they have that fallen angel inside of their body that they have to wrestle with, either accept the deal or try and find a way to get it out. So we start with their leader, Nicodemus. TJ, take it away.
Nicodemus, I want to... Super old guy.
Yes.
Almost as old as I am.
Mm-hmm.
He does have one advantage. He was in the New Testament. I wasn't.
Different Nicodemus.
But no, as far as Nicodemus in this, I'm really not. I'm bad up here today. I don't really remember him super well.
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, he's the leader of the Denarians. He's the one who's been working behind the scenes for like 2,000 years to try and mold the world into their image and even resist one of the greater forces out there that we find later on that he doesn't much care for, because if they take over, then he won't be able to rule the world. So he's definitely a villain in every way, shape, or form, but every now and then he'll do something that benefits our protags just so he doesn't give up what he has. and he has collected denarians over the years. Now, the church has actively been fighting him for 2,000 years alongside the Knights of the Cross. So they've tried to keep the coins away. Every coin that they take from either killing a denarian or one who's given it up willingly, he always tries to find and bring back into the fold because he wants his army to be as large as possible. He himself is working alongside / possessed by Anduriel, who is the fallen angel of shadow and darkness, and is kind of, in many ways, an opposite to Uriel, and that he's also a spy master, but on the demonic side of things.
Yeah. And he has, like, Anduriel is, like, the reason he doesn't age. It's not like all of them are, immortal just because, they have a sword or they have a coin. Just Anduriel. And maybe a couple of the other ones also do make you immortal. But it's not just straight up, you have fallen angel, you're immortal now. It's not that simple.
Yes.
I don't think.
I think it gives you longevity. I think he and a select few are the ones who are actually like immortal unless certain things are broken. But what helps him step up his game is that he has this noose that he always wears around. And it's the exact noose that Judas used to hang himself and kill himself with. And as long as he has that on, he can't be killed until Harry finds out that if you mess with the noose, there's a chance he can be killed. And it's kind of noted for the first time in like 2,000 years, he's afraid because Harry did something stupid and irresponsible, which is what Harry does. And yet it worked out in his favor.
Yeah. Isn't that super annoying when, there's a boss that's super, super hard to kill and you just can't do it anyway until you do something that's equally hard to do. So, just take the noose off of him. Then you can kill him.
Yeah, you need a game guide to beat Nicodemus in the days before the internet.
Yeah.
You can't just look it up on GameFAQs.
Yeah, you got to go to the Scholastic Book Fair and get the video game cheats book.
There's a callback. Now, there's other Denarians as well. There's his wife, Deirdre, and his daughter, Tessa. I may have gotten those names switched up. I always forget who's who.
I'm pretty sure Tessa's his wife.
Is Tessa his wife? Let's double check this with the magic of the internet real quick.
Yeah, the Scholastic Book Fair.
Yeah, yes, of course, the Scholastic Book Fair.
Mm-hmm.
Deirdre. Deirdre is his daughter. Tessa is his wife. So I did. Goodness gracious.
I'm back.
Okay. Yeah, you got me there. And as we find out later on, a little messed up as a guy. He is in an incestuous relationship with his daughter, who's kind of messed up herself. His wife's not much better. And they're all one big happy evil family who hates each other's guts. And yet they still come back and do evil together. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah. Yeah. It is nice when your antagonist is really antagonistic.
And he's a huge threat because in his first venture, he tries to take the Shroud of Turin, which is most definitely not what people think it is, but is an artifact of the church because one of the things they use here is kind of a tulpa of sorts in the series. The tulpa being either a thought creature, but this being more of an egregore, if I'm using my terminology right, where belief in that thing has actually invested it with the power people thought it had. So that's one of the things they kind of bring up over the series is that if you believe in something enough, if enough people do, that thing actually has that thing's the power you think it does. So he's trying to steal it for his own purposes. And later on, he tries to steal the Holy Grail and more from the underworld. And that's part of what he's attempting to do in Skin Game, which is another reason that book's really good.
I'm sure.
You have anything else you want to add for the Denarians before we move on?
I do. No, I just how many books away are we from our like fifth, like our third fifth, or no, our fourth fifth? Are there 18 now?
There are 17 now, if I have my numbers right. So it'd be 3.
Man.
Yeah.
I know. have to catch up anyway. I have to reread. I have time.
Fair enough. Yeah, last I saw, he was like maybe half of the way through to getting his next book done. He has like a progress tracker on his website, which is super nice. You didn't have to do that. It's way better than certain people like Martin would do.
Yeah, Martin would never.
Convinced.
Patrick did. Patrick Rothfuss
did
it. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. That looked at that Doors of Stone progress tracker probably 300-400 times.
Yeah, if Martin did it, there'd probably be a negative number on there.
Yeah, you can actually get on and watch it count down live.
So later on in this series, we learn that not only are there fantastical beings like werewolves, vampires, fair folk, and the like, but there are actually still gods of old mythologies still active in the world. Now, TJ, before we go there, I have to ask you the question. If this were true in our world as well, what would be the implications of that?
I'm just the implication that, like, okay, yes, Christianity is real. However, so is everything else. I don't know how to reconcile that information.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't.
And that's one of those things. Go ahead.
No, I just don't. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, scholars have debated this for many years. Is when God talks to his heavenly council, does that mean that there are other gods there? Does that mean Zeus is there? Does that mean Odin is there? Or, Sun Wukong or what have you? Or does it mean that it's just a council of angels? When it talks about gods in the Old Testament, is it actually talking about Molech and Baal being real, or Ashtoreth? Or is it just using them as the people worship them so they act like they're real? Excellent questions. We don't know the answers, obviously, but let's say they are, that'd be terrifying. I don't want to be in a world where Baal is real, or Molech, or what have you, with plenty, or even Aztec deities, with children being sacrificed to them on the regular, even more than that.
Yeah.
But the implications of that being real shows me something, that there are other beings out there who possess power that makes them look like a god, that makes them appear as if they are above humanity. So in power-wise, yeah, that would be true. So I typically would go with what some scholars will say is either they're humans tricked by demons into thinking they're deities and gifted with supernatural abilities to back it up, or they are demons themselves who are masquerading as gods to lead people to worship them instead of God.
Yeah. I do think I would probably move to Japan.
Okay.
And,
Well, everything is going to end up being a commie?
Everything's going to end up, having its own deity to pray to. Like sink's broken, I'm going to go to the corresponding shrine for indoor plumbing. The yokai of indoor plumbing, I'm going to go give an offering to.
I mean, in that case, Shintoism might be the way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I can be Christian and give an offering to a couple of yokai, right?
I would say no. But
in this world,
sense, it's like, in that sense, there's a kami, which is a lesser form. It can mean multiple things. It can mean yokai, it can mean God, it can mean spirit. It's a very versatile word. But there's a kami for everything. Even things that haven't been made yet, there's going to be one for them. That's kind of the flexibility of Shintoism, is that if there's something new props up, you just make something up for it. And whoever's telling the story right now is correct. There's no real continuity for some parts.
Japan would be pretty nice. That's all I'm saying.
I understand your plan in that scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. But then, also like Amaterasu and some of the scarier Japanese deities.
There's some implications there I wouldn't be too happy and fond of.
Yeah. And like Jormungandr.
Oh gosh, the Midgard serpent were real. There's a lot of terrifying implications.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm glad we don't have to deal with that. But Harry does. And one of those is actually a very friendly guy. And that is Odin, who he first meets, if I recall correctly, as like the leader of Monarch, which would be one eye, if I remember the translation correctly, which is a security industry where a bunch of Valkyries are at. So take it away, TJ. What do you remember of Odin from this series?
Odin in this, he's, this is probably maybe my second favorite depiction of Odin. As sparse as my memory is, I remember being like, oh, this rocks, this is awesome. Number one is actually from Final Fantasy.
Okay.
Just kind of all of them combined. Odin's awesome. He's not like a character, but he's a great Eidolon, and it's a fun attack to use. That's beside the point. Here, Odin is kind of like MCU Odin. He's like a fun guy, very far away from what's traditionally thought of as Norse Odin. He's not super serious about stuff. He's not super stoic.
And it's actually part of a rebranding, an intentional rebranding, because we are kind of working under American God rules here, in that sense of gods need prayer, and they need you to believe in them for them to have power. And one of the ways Odin, being the intelligent man that he is, the reason he lost the eye in the first place was to gain intelligence and wisdom, is that he became part of the winter court of fairies, I think, as like their winter king. I think, or maybe I always confuse summer and winter. It's one of the two. But not only that, he also mantled himself as Santa Claus, who canonically exists in the Dresden verse, who is also Odin.
It's such a good bit.
And it's played really well, because when you learn the information, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Just mythologically as well, there's some aspects of Odin / Woden that have been incorporated into the Santa Claus mythos of today. Just look up some old stories about what Odin would do with gifts. And yeah, I approve. He's a great guy.
That's so funny.
And he's not one of those guys who just stands by and does nothing either. He actively fights.
Yeah, I don't remember.
And changes. He's part of their strike team.
Yeah, there's some series. It's not Santa's not an American Gods. Is he?
Well, Odin is.
Odin is not Santa, though. There's some series.
Santa does.
There's some series where, they've got that whole thing going on where, God's only as strong as, their believers are, but Santa's there and he's just the strongest deity.
Oh man, what are you thinking of?
I'll figure it out
let
eventually.
TJ know what he's thinking of.
I'll figure it out.
Because we're not coming up with it. But to spare TJ more, I've already spoiled enough. Hades does show up in Skin Game. We see him there. And one of the heaviest gods we've seen is Ethniu, who shows up in 2 books after that. And it takes everyone to fight against her in a very fun battle. There's a reason the book is called Battleground. And there's a reason Butcher had to split the book up into 2, because he had a lot to tell.
Man.
But
yeah, no, those Gaelic deities don't mess around.
Oh, absolutely not.
They're telling some scary stories over there.
So another thing, we kind of go up in the book that introduces us to Butters, Deadbeat. We have a group of necromancers enacting an ancient ritual. And as this is being explained, there's a very funny bit where, Butters uses the Lord's name in vain, says Jesus Christ. And then Harry says something to the effect of, no, I don't think they had anything to do with that. So the possibility in series is brought up that Jesus was brought back to life using necromancy. So in a reality where necromancy is provably true, how would one fight against the claim that Jesus was brought back by magic rather than the power of the divine's control over the nature that they made?
Well, I think in universe you probably ask one of the angels to ask God.
Good start.
And get God to say, like, yeah, I did that. Beyond that, I think I feel like the point of faith is actually less strong in the Dresden Files. Okay. Because your faith doesn't matter. Like, I know they exist. I'm saying you're wrong, you know? Kind of like Sanya's thing is like, cool, they exist. So what? I'm not sure what I would do.
Okay, that's fair.
Who's to say God's power isn't magic?
Anyways, I'd bring up the point that when you look at what necromancy actually does in the series, you don't come back right.
That's a little
You
different.
don't come back as, something good. Even Kimmler, like the guy they're trying to resurrect in that book, is able to like have control of his mind. He's very lichish in that manner, that they could possibly bring him back to life in that way. But it's to perform evil, it's to do evil deeds. And you look at someone like Jesus, where the exact opposite happened. You compare and contrast the two. Well, one wasn't brought back by necromancy, so therefore he wasn't afflicted by what happens when you come back through necromancy, where you were lesser than what you became, where you were before. And in fact, he became greater. Now, obviously, that's its own discussion we could do for another show. But I did want to bring it up because, number one, the joke's funny, as irreverent as it is. But number two, it's brought up in the series, so why don't we talk about it?
Yeah, it was really funny. But yeah, Jesus came back as Jesus the White, actually. That's not in most translations.
All right. So, guys, as we're about to head to the wrap up here, we are going to be doing a special bonus question. That, of course, being if we to receive one of the swords of the cross, which one do we think that we'd be the best fit for and why? So if that interests you, head over to Captivate, become a subscriber there, or Patreon, become a subscriber there. Either one works. We really appreciate everything you guys do. But TJ, is there anything else you want to add to this discussion before we end?
I would like to humbly invite you, our listeners, with me as I reread this series that I clearly overestimated my memory of. Very brash of me, but I will be rereading the series starting tonight, so you better read fast.
Okay.
So by the time you're listening to this, I'm way ahead.
You could have already caught up.
Yeah, we're not. This isn't actually a read-along. This is a race.
Can you outrace TJ?
So good luck
at reading through 17 books, and even more. There's collections of short stories, and there's comics. And you might even be able to watch the TV show for its one season.
Yeah, like I am right now.
All right, buddy. So as far as the series as a whole, how would you rate it out of 10?
Gonna give it an 8.
Okay.
Gonna give it an 8. It's not perfect. I do think, I don't know, it just lacks something for me.
Okay.
That's but it's great. 8's great.
Yeah.
I will rate something a 1, just in case someone's not aware. Like, to me, a 5 is not bad. A 5 is okay.
Yeah.
This is a
anything
real
below
1 to
5
10.
is when things start getting bad, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But for me, this is a 9.5 out of 10. I love the series. I can reread it easily over and over and find new things. And if you can write a book where I can find new things because, oh my gosh, this is a mention of something that happens, that won't happen for 10 more books. You've got me. You've sold me. I'm on your side. And Butcher does that in droves. Things that just seem like they don't matter end up mattering. And I love that as a reader, and I love doing that as a writer too. So yeah, it's not perfect. I really can't stand some of the more male gazy scenes we get from Dresden's perspective. They get old real quick, but they are what they are. He did that for titillating matters. It is what it is.
Yeah. Ask me again in 2 weeks when I have caught up to the 17 books.
All right.
And then the recency bias, I'll probably say 10.
Okay. You heard the people. You got a deadline. 2 weeks. Who can beat TJ?
Yeah. 2 weeks, and you hope we uploaded this quick. If you caught up, if you started after this came out and you finished or caught up to the series before me, I will, and you can prove it. I'll send you $40.
Oh, $40 straight from the man himself. from the man whose face should be on that dollar.
Yeah.
He'll give it to you.
Yeah.
All right. TJ, do you have any recommendations you'd like to give to the audience?
If you like bad TV, you would love the Dresden Files TV show, I think.
I can't disagree with that.
So people just like bad TV?
Yeah. For me, I mentioned this for what I was geeking out on a couple episodes back, but I recently finished the Midnight Suns game, starring multiple different Marvel characters and using that card format. I had to really get used to because I'm not a turn-based guy, but I really enjoyed it. It had a great story. I enjoyed the original character they used, who you actually control, alongside teaming up different Marvel characters I really love. It's a really fun game, so you guys should really check it out.
I didn't play it. I might.
Yeah, I think it's free on if you have PlayStation Plus. Yeah,
I might check it out.
that's how I got it. All right. Thank you guys for listening today. Please, if you get a chance, leave a 5-star review on your podcasting platform of choice to help us to the ratings there, to get more people involved. You want more people to hear our voices? That's an easy way to do it. We really appreciate those who've already done it. As well, if you have your own episode topic ideas you'd like us to do, feel free to send those our way alongside any questions you might have for our eventual Q&A session that we will do with as many hosts as possible. Since you guys got us to over 100 subscribers on YouTube, and that number is steadily growing, we really appreciate that. And that's one way we want to show our thanks to you, is by doing that Q&A session. So send those to systematicgeekology@gmail.com. I'd like to shout out some patrons and supporters as well. Thank you, Aaron Hardy, Daniel Sigmund, Trip Fuller, and James Barrett. You guys are the best. But remember, we're all the chosen people, a geekdom of priests.
Hello, friends. If you enjoy Systematic Ecology, a great way to support us and to keep us moving forward into the future is to be a patron on our Patreon network. If you're a Patreon, then you get live access to our YouTube exclusives like Comic Book Ketchup and Manga Mustard, Drinks with Tejas, and also some extra content there with our companion series to go along with our annual theme. If you're a patron, you get exclusive merch like t-shirts and handbags and mugs. There's also a bonus extra question that has extra content. In each episode, we go deeper into our faith and the questions that we're wrestling with, but we also do this extra question to jump in and share about, and patrons get to hear how we answer that question. There's discounts on our store. You get access to any future online D&D campaigns. You can easily access all of our Patreon content through our Spotify page where it says exclusive content for subscribers. That could be you folks. And all that being said, you get the satisfaction that you help us keep the lights on and keep us moving forward with our software, our marketing, our equipment, staying current in the podcast game. We love Systematic Ecology. We hope you do too. Support us moving forward. Thank you for all that you are. We know there's a lot of great choices and content out there, and you choose to listen to Systematic Ecology. Thanks, folks. We love you. Peace.
If you love our show, you can follow the whole network in a single feed on Spotify at Anazao Ministry Podcast, or the network page on Apple Podcasts. There you'll find shows like The Homely, The Whole Church Podcast, My Seminary Life, Let Nothing Move You, Dummy for Theology, The Bible After Hours, as well as mine and my husband's show, The Clydes, where my husband Taylor and I go through weekly discussions in a devotional conversational method to help us all get closer to one another and God.